Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Handhelds. I'm Joey, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new ASUS Tessen telescopic controller that's meant for your mobile phone. This is $110 US or 139 Canadian dollars. It has USB pass-through charging, there's RGB lighting when it's connected to an actual device, there's analog triggers, and there's a whole bunch more. In the box is the actual controller, and what makes this special is that it folds up and you put your phone inside. So it's a bit different than most other telescopic controllers that don't fold up, and it makes it very easy for you to actually carry this around with you and also insert your phone, because if you've seen other ones, it's a disaster sometimes when you have to insert your phone and suddenly the spring is going around and it's a big thing. This one, just fold it up, put your phone in, fold it, and stretch out. And it's super simple. Let's take a look at what's inside, as this controller is special, since it actually supports a lot of phone cases. There's a whole bunch of different rubber connections meant for both sides of the Tessen. I've already done this with my phone specifically, and what you want to do is fold it up, and then the pieces are labeled, so there's R and L, and you just slide them right on, and then you do the other side as well. They have a whole bunch of these, and a back piece as well, and that goes right in the center, depending on the size of your phone and the phone case, as well as whichever rubber connections you're using. The one that I'm using here is the thinner back piece to support my phone. Now, if you're wondering which pieces to use for your phone, the manual has you covered. There's 4 rubber pieces for the left side and 1 on the right, and it tells you which rubber piece to use for your phone size, and it goes up to 11.27 millimeters. At least that's what it says. But the website says that you can support up to 14.5 millimeters, so I have to imagine that's maybe without any of these rubber connections at all. So basically it all depends on what phone and case. I have a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, and it's a pretty thin case, and it fits perfectly. But I have to imagine anybody with an OtterBox likely won't work. Now that we have it in our hands, you can see that everything is clicky. The face buttons are tactile and clicky and not a long range of motion. The D-pad is more of the same. Very clicky D-pad. Sticks are on the smaller end, not as big as something from, let's say, an Xbox controller, but I still found them to be just fine in games. The range of motion is still there, and it's wide. With the phone in the grip, it feels nice, but it's a bit slippery. It's sliding a little bit, and I wish it had a little bit more grip. But otherwise, everything else feels great on the comfort end. On the back, we have 2 programmable buttons, and the phone is stuck inside. It's not going anywhere. This is nice and snug. You can see the RGB lighting on the side and throughout, and it's not really invasive. Could likely just turn it off though. It doesn't seem to add much since you can barely see it while you're holding the device. If we plug in for charging, you can see that the USB pass-through charging is working perfectly, and this goes up to 18 watts. Taking a look at the Armoury Crate app, and you can adjust mappings or rear paddle mappings and so much more. You can also map the ROG button to other functions. There's also lighting where you can change the lighting effect and colors and a bit more. However, there is one big thing missing. Looking at some games, and there is no on-screen button mapping, which means games like Call of Duty are not going to work. It doesn't recognize the controller, and you can't map the on-screen buttons, so it's out. But apparently, Call of Duty Warzone does work, according to their list of games on their website. However, another popular game that doesn't work is Honkai Star Rail. Controls aren't recognized, and of course you can't map the on-screen controls since there's no button mapper. That is probably the biggest negative of this controller. But if we jump into a game like Dead Cells, everything works out of the box, and it actually feels great. Controls are super responsive, and they're fast thanks to the 500 MHz polling rate, and the whole thing just feels good. Jumping into Horizon Chase just to try out the triggers, and they feel just fine as well for analog controls. I have to say I'm really liking the controls at this point. They feel a lot more responsive and the device feels good to hold compared to other telescopic controllers. I haven't tried Rocket League Side Swipe before with a controller. The controls are really awkward compared to actual Rocket League, and this game is super weird, but the Tessen handles it like a champ. Then we come to my favorite part of this device, and it is the D-pad. This is one of the best and most accurate D-pads that I've had the pleasure of using. Doing some Super Mario World testing, and it's just a joy to use. I can't explain how good this D-pad feels, but I could play this for hours like this. Tried out some Plumber for All Seasons, which is a Super Mario World ROM hack, and it was more of the same. The D-pad is the absolute highlight of this controller by far. The only negative to the D-pad and buttons is the clickiness, which most people might not like. It is definitely not a bedside controller. Just doing some more emulation checking now and some F-Zero GX on GameCube, and I just want to play with the sticks a little bit more, and same as before, they're super responsive like everything else on this device, and I'm actually really impressed. Let's do a quick wrap up here. Overall, I think this is a very good telescopic controller. The D-pad is outstanding, I'm impressed with it, it is fantastic. The rest of the controls are good as well, and it passed every single test that I can think of doing, and it seems like it's just fine as an option, so I would definitely use this if I was playing on my phone a lot more, and you just want to use something to play some more games with. This would be perfect. The phone stays in, it doesn't move, it doesn't go anywhere, it fits a lot of phones with different phone cases, and it's a step above others like that just don't do any of that without having to modify the actual controller. Like I said before, I think the only thing missing is the lack of on-screen button mapping, because that just removes a whole bunch of games from what it can do. Call of Duty is a big one, Honkai Star Rail, Genshin Impact. These are all games that you can't play because there is no on-screen button mapping. So you're mostly relying on the game to recognize this controller out of the box and have it work, and that's not very good. I think ASUS is big enough that they can create some sort of software to do on-screen button mapping, because Razer has it, and so do a lot of others. Other than that, I think this is a really good value, and I would put this probably ahead of most other controllers, knowing that negative. So GameSirs, no. Any of those AliExpress clones and garbage controllers, no. I would go for this over all of them, including the backbone, which really didn't like the backbone. This is so much better than that, although you lose that native PlayStation remote play, but you could just use PS Play and that works fine. Now, I've said it many times before, but my favorite telescopic controller is still the Game Vice Flex. This is still the best telescopic controller that you can't buy anymore because they don't sell them and it's just no more. It's discontinued as far as I know. So, with that in mind, as this being not available to anybody, the Tessen is now my go-to recommendation because it is actually available and you can buy it. They don't make the Flex anymore, so I can't recommend it. And I don't like any of the other GameSir options as well as the Razers and all of that. This is an easy recommendation at $110 US. Pretty simple. So if you're looking for a telescopic controller and you want something better than those GameSirs and those AliExpress clones and all of that, and something that is definitely a lot better quality-wise and comfort-wise and all of that, this is easily a recommendation from me. Obviously knowing the one big negative of no on-screen button mapping. So that's going to be it for this one. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow. Come join me on the Discord to talk about telescopic controllers and retro handhelds. Support me on Patreon if you like my stuff. And hope you all have a good one.